So you're in the market for a reader's edition and you're looking for the best one. Which one is it? Well, in this video, I'm going to take a look at the top 3 and I'll give you some hints and tips on which one you might want to choose. Let's get into it. First of all, as we start today, I want to remind you that I'm just not a huge fan of reader's editions, and there's a number of reasons for this. In fact, I covered this in an entire video and a follow-up video, which you will find just up here. So I encourage you to go watch that. But in short, a reader's edition can become a crutch very easily. And in fact, it's really interesting just looking at these reader's editions, which ones are actually trying to encourage you to get away from reader's editions and which ones are happy for you to stay on the reader's edition rather than graduating to a real New Testament. So I want to encourage you not to be stuck with a reader's edition. I want to encourage you to take this reader's edition if you're going to use one, if you feel you have to, and use it as a starting point. There are better ways to learn Greek and to master the text, to be able to read the text, than reader's editions, at least in my opinion, and other people have different opinions. But if you're going to buy one, well, let's talk about which one's the right one. So the 3 reader's editions we're going to look at today are probably the most popular reader's editions. We have the reader's edition, the Zondervan Greek reader's edition, which is nice and small and thin. We have the UBS reader's edition, which has been out for a few years now, and then we have the Tyndale reader's edition as well. So these probably represent the 3 most popular reader's editions that are on the market today. There are other ones, I believe, that are out there, though I haven't really, well, I don't have those. And these ones are, I think, like I mentioned, the most popular. So like I said, one of the things that I want to encourage you to do is to get off a reader's edition. And to do that, you're going to want to become as independent as possible. And so when you're looking at a reader's edition, you want to ask questions such as, how independent will this reader's edition make me be as I go through this reader's edition? In other words, how demanding is the reader's edition actually going to be of me? Now you might think, well, it's still Greek, right? It's still going to be demanding, and that's true. It's still going to be Greek and it will still be a little demanding. But some of these have higher bars than others. For instance, do you want the glosses at the bottom of the page to include passing tips? If you're going to get off a reader's edition, you need to get really good at your passing. And having the passing at the bottom of the page may just be too much of a temptation for you to not actually learn the passing well and not graduate. So if you're going to do these, use a reader's edition, I would encourage you to actually use something like Parse Greek or mastergreek.com, one of those tools that you can use and to learn your passing really well as well. And you'll find a link to a review that I did of Parse Greek and other passing apps. I did a guide to passing apps last year. You'll find a link to that just up here. So I encourage you to go watch that and use those apps on a daily basis. That will get you off the passing dependency that you may develop with these reader's editions. So as I've gone through these, I've actually marked down, I think, a little bit, the reader's editions that have the passing at the bottom. The other thing you want to ask yourself if you want to get off the reader's edition is how much vocabulary do you want to be demanded of as you go through this? Again, some of these have different vocabulary requirements. For instance, the Zondervan Reader's Edition, which is this one, this has all the words occurring 50 times or more are included at the bottom of the page. But if you go to the other 2, then the number of words at the bottom of the page dramatically reduces. That's a good thing because it's going to be more demanding of you as a reader. It's going to require more knowledge, and that more knowledge gives you a better chance of graduating away from a reader's edition. But none of these are perfect. And as we get to the end of this video, I'll explain why. So let's start with the Zondervan Greek Reader's Edition. Now this is the 2nd edition. There is a 3rd edition out now. I do believe that the changes are pretty minor. It's largely just to the apparatus that they provide you at the bottom. There's not a lot of changes as far as I know in terms of the layout. So the layout and what I'm going to say about this should still apply to the 3rd edition just as it does to the 2nd edition. This is probably the oldest of these 3 in terms of having been on the market the most time, which is why it's in its 3rd edition rather than its 1st edition. And there is a lot of good about this, and possibly one of the most compelling things about the Zondervan Greek Reader's Edition, a Reader's Greek New Testament, is that it's small. Look at how small this is. This is tiny. This is easily the most portable of all these reader's editions that we have today. You can see though, in terms of portability, it also has quite a nice cover. This is it's not leather. It's not a leather cover. It feels like a bonded leather, but the bond, you know, and I'm not a big fan of bonded leathers, but it actually feels kind of nice. I don't know how long it would last. My one already has some sort of markings around it. I've had this for a little while. So it's got a little bit of marking around the edges and things, where it's obviously been touched and worn. A little bit like I was walking through a forest the other day, and you could see where people walk because they touch the trees and the bark on the trees. It's kind of like that. So this is kind of like, you can just see it starting to wear. But it doesn't feel like the kind of bonded leather that would have a major sort of flaking issue. But again, over time, who knows, right? In terms of good things about this, is it has the vocabulary at the bottom of the page for all the words occurring 50 times or more. Now, this is the most help out of all of these readers editions that you're going to get. So this doesn't require that much of you as a reader. It's going to require that you've finished pretty much like a beginning Greek grammar and something that only requires you to learn the 330 words that occur 50 times or more. So this is really, I think, designed to be plugged into something like Mounce's Basics of Biblical Greek and being published by Zondervan. Well, that makes total sense, right? You can also get this as just a New Testament, but you can also get this as an Old Testament and New Testament with the Hebrew Old Testament and the Greek New Testament combined. So that's also kind of nice, which means that you can have the same format for both an Old Testament with the New Testament and just a New Testament alone as well. The other thing about this is that it doesn't have any parsing help in the glosses at the bottom of the page. So when it gives you a gloss, it's just the gloss. You have to know how to parse verbs to be able to use that gloss effectively. So while it might give you the most help possible when it comes to vocabulary, it gives you the least help when it comes to parsing. So, like I said, there's no such thing as the perfect Reader's Edition. On the negative, the layout in this, I think, is probably one of the big issues here. If you look at the bottom of the page here, where your glosses are, the glosses are all just sort of flow together without sort of being laid out nicely. This is a problem in the sense that what it's going to do is it means that when you're looking for a word up here and then you're looking for a word down here, you're really looking for a word. You're not just going to a column and looking down. You're going across and down and across and down. And it becomes quite tedious to look things up, such that you're ending up in some cases, if you've got a lot of words up here that are listed down below, you may end up actually losing your place inside not only the text at the bottom, but also where you're reading as well. So this is kind of not well laid out, and it doesn't have very wide margins. I kind of like wider margins. It's good for taking notes and cross-references, and if you don't like to write your Bible, well, it doesn't matter, does it? But I like a well laid out Bible, and I don't think this really is that well laid out. There's two other things I think are slightly negative on this. One is that the glosses in this are fairly strongly contextualized, which means that if you get a word in one location and then you get the same word in another location, there is no guarantee that you're going to get the same glosses, which means that if you're trying to learn the words as you go, which some people think is possible, personally I don't think it's easy to do that, but yeah, you're going to pick up some words as you go, but it's going to be harder with this because those glosses at the bottom of the page are going to have different meanings, so you're not even going to be able to follow, you see that word and you can't say, oh yeah, I remember that meant such and such over here, because now it means something different in this other context. So that's something to bear in mind. Personally, I'm not a fan of contextualized glosses. This one uses them pretty strongly. And finally, and this is really minor, the text used for this is not a standard text. This is the text, the Greek text that they use for translating the NIV, but it's not a standard text. You can't really go out and buy just a normal edition of this Greek text, but that's pretty minor. I mean, you could argue the same thing for the SBL, Greek New Testament, perhaps. That's a different situation. But anyway, this is not a standard text. It's not the SBL. It's not the UBS, Nisale Aland. It's not the Tyndale. It's something else. And that's okay as long as you know that. So in summary, this is it's the nicest and easiest to transport, to take with you to church or something like that. So from that perspective, this is a great choice. From what it demands from you as a reader, good on the glosses, not so good on the vocabulary. So that's the Zondervan Greek Reader's Edition. The next one I want to talk about is the UBS Reader's Edition. Now this, I have a special place. My first Greek New Testament was a UBS. In fact, this Bible here, this was my first Greek New Testament. and you know, I've got notes and things like that in it. So I have kind of a special place in my heart for the UBS, and I kind of like it. And if you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button below, and that helps me to know that this video is helpful. But let me just talk more about the UBS Reader's Edition. First of all, this is a standard text. The UBS Reader's Edition is based on the same text as you get in the UBS 5th edition or the Nestle Aland 28th edition. There's no difference in terms of the actual Greek text. However, there are some differences between this text and the standard UBS text when it comes to some of the other elements, specifically when it comes to the text critical notes. As you know, the Nestle Aland and the UBS are both intended to be volumes that have text critical notes in them, and the Reader's Edition doesn't have the same text critical notes as the UBS, the standard UBS text does. And you might wonder, well, what's the point of that? Well, this is actually where one of the things about this I really like. What it's trying to do here is it's saying to you, essentially in the introduction, we want you to graduate to a full Greek New Testament. And therefore, we've given you just an abbreviated set of text critical notes here to introduce you to text critical notes and the task of text criticism, but we want you to graduate to a fuller UBS or Nestle Aland. And I like that. I must say, I really like that. So that immediately wins points in my part. Now, when it comes to inside the text, again, it looks pretty consistent with what you're used to in a Nestle Aland. You have the same pericope, the paragraphs that are set up there, and you also have pericope headings here in English. So if you like that about the UBS and Nestle Aland, well, you still have that here as well. So you've got that, yeah, whether you like that or not, it's there. The other thing that I found that was kind of interesting here, let me see if I can find an example, is that apart from having nice wide margins, you've also got cross-references in those margins on occasion to Old Testament quotations. So you can very quickly find Old Testament passages related to the quotation that is found there. Not only that, but you've also got in the text Old Testament quotations are in italics, just like they are in the UBS as well. But again, you can see the layout. We've got nice, clean columns for our vocabulary at the bottom of the page, and abbreviated. Here's our abbreviated text critical notes. And the vocabulary at the bottom of the page is for words that occur 30 times or more. So in other words, you need to have a vocabulary of around 400-ish words to be able to use this Reader's Edition effectively. So they're asking a little more from you than the Zondervan Reader's Edition was. The other thing about this that I was really surprised at is that the paper in this is different to the paper in the UBS and Nestle Aland, which is a really good thing. This paper is actually really nice, so I like that. And so with the wide margins, this is actually quite a nicely laid out Reader's Edition. The other thing about it is it's got a different cover, so the cover that you'd be used to on a standard UBS, this is a nice, a much sturdier cover, which I like. I think that's really good. And then one more thing that distinguishes the UBS Reader's Edition from the other ones that are here is that at the back, we have this nice dictionary, and this is the best dictionary of all of the Reader's Editions that we have here. For each entry, there's actually quite a significant entry, so you can see a little bit more detail than you would with the others. Now, each of these do have a set of glosses at the back. The Zondervan Greek Reader's Edition is really just a word, then a simple gloss. This one gives you a lot more information. So this is the most exhaustive, and then the Tyndale gives you somewhere in the middle between the two. In terms of the negatives here, though, this is obviously a larger format than the Zondervan one. Maybe I should just take this piece of paper off. Here we go. And because it's a little bit of a larger format, it's actually a little bit less portable as well. So that's one thing. The other thing is this ribbon. The ribbons on the UBS, these German Bible Society Bibles are quite nice in the sense that when you get them, they're nice. The thing is they're woven, and at the end of these, that means that typically over a very short amount of time, that weaving starts to come undone. And you see people with these where the weaving is undone all the way up, and it becomes just a mess. So I'm not a big fan of these ribbons. You can trim them a little bit if you wanted to, and then either burn them or put a little bit of nail polish on it just to sort of seal that end. But that's another negative as well. Yeah, maybe that's mine, and maybe I'm being picky there. And finally, the last issue really with this, and again, we've talked about this earlier, is that with those glosses at the bottom of the page, you do have your passing helps in this volume. So overall though, I was surprised. This was a far better volume than I was expecting it to be. And it's actually really nice. It's got nice binding, it's nicely laid out. I really like what they've done with the cross references for the Old Testament passages. So those kinds of things make this really good. So I like the UBS Reader's Edition. It has exceeded my expectations. So this is a great Reader's Edition. Now the last one that I want to go through here is the Tyndale House Reader's Edition. This is the Reader's Edition for the Tyndale House Greek New Testament. This comes with its own slipcover. So if you wanted to have it sit inside there nicely, you can do that. But that comes with it as well. And like the UBS, it's also a standard text. So this is a text you can buy in other formats. You can buy it without the reading notes. So one of the things that I like about this is that you can buy it in other formats, and it's going to encourage you to try and migrate onto something a little bit more robust. Now, if you're interested in more information about the Tyndale House Reader's Edition, I have reviewed the Tyndale House Bible itself before, and this shares everything with that edition, which means that it's got the different ordering of books, just like the Tyndale House Greek New Testament does. So if you don't like to change the order of books, then you probably want to go with the UBS. But this has also got some nice things about it. Like for instance, you have nice wide margins, you have nice column layout at the bottom of the page for your glosses. You also have, of the three of these, this still has the nicest paper. It's almost opaque in terms of you can almost not see through the page at all. But really all of the pages, all of the paper in each of these three is pretty good really. This one is a little bit more dense than the others, and that comes up in the reading experience a little bit. You also have in this, you have standardized glosses. So the glosses from this edition come largely from the BDAG, and they're pretty much standardized from one instance to another. Now, I believe they've made a few little tweaks here and there, but for the most part, if you see a word at the bottom of the page here, you're going to see the same word with the same gloss somewhere else where it occurs in the Greek New Testament, and that's really what you want. In terms of what this demands from you, these glosses are the glosses for the words that occur 25 times or more. So you need a slightly larger vocabulary for this Greek Reader's Edition than you would for, say, even the UBS. But then on top of that, you also have the parsing at the bottom of the page for each of these words as well. So it's kind of like it's going to require more lexically, but then it still has the parsing and doesn't quite require as much from you from a parsing point of view. So like I mentioned, there's no perfect reading edition. And of course, like the UBS, this is actually probably the largest of the three volumes in terms of portability. But even so, it's pretty easy to take this with you wherever you go. It's not as big as a study Bible, and if you're used to carrying a study Bible around, then this won't be a problem at all. So when it comes to choosing one of these, my recommendation to you is figure out first, do you want to graduate from this onto something else, in which case you want something more demanding. And in that case, I would suggest that one of these two is the UBS or the Tyndale are going to require more from you from a lexical perspective. But if parsing is something you don't want to get stuck with, then you might want to try the Zondervan Reader's Edition instead, which has the parsing, no parsing at the bottom of the page. So this is the problem. If you want something that is absolutely demanding, you really want something that challenges you to learn the vocabulary down to about 25 times, but then has no parsing. I don't know. Maybe someone might be out there listening to this and say, oh yeah, that's a good idea, maybe we should do that. But if you're not worried about moving on to a bigger Reader's Edition, namely an adult Reader's Edition, then it doesn't really matter which one of these you're going to buy. You do want to be aware that there are a little bit extra prerequisites, if you like, lexically for the UBS and Tyndale, but other than that, each of these are going to provide you with a very good foundation for reading Greek texts for a long time to come. But I would encourage you to move on beyond one of these, or at least have a plan to do that, and that's where Master New Testament Greek comes in. Now, this isn't a big advertisement for Master New Testament Greek, but I do want to remind you that the best way to learn vocabulary is to actually learn it book by book, which is what we do in Master New Testament Greek. So if you've got one of these, or you're looking at buying one, I'd love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments which one you prefer and why, and I'd look forward to interacting with you down there as well. Don't forget, if you're interested in Master New Testament Greek, download your free roadmap to mastery at mntg.me/roadmap. And if you want to support this channel, you can do that by clicking the join button and joining the coffee club. For a price of a cup of coffee each month, you can help support this channel and help provide some of the resources we need to continue to create these videos. Thank you so much to Hendrickson for sending me the UBS Reader's Edition and to Crossway for sending me the Tyndale Reader's Edition. Thank you to you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. We'll see you then.